For centuries, humanity had dreamed of finding intelligent life among the stars. When first contact finally happened, it wasn't a grand event like in the movies, no noble explorers, no warships descending from the sky. Instead, it came in the form of an invitation. A strange, pulsing transmission, received simultaneously by every major space agency on Earth, contained a simple message: you are invited to stand before the Galactic Council. The transmission included star charts leading to the designated meeting point. It was clear, we weren't alone. The universe had been watching us. Excitement and panic gripped the planet. Governments scrambled to form a response, while scientists debated the authenticity of the message. Eventually, it was decided, Earth would send a delegation to represent humanity. A specially constructed vessel, the UNS Horizon, was prepared in record time. A crew of diplomats, linguists, scientists, and military strategists boarded the ship, knowing they were about to make history. The journey was brief, too brief. The technology that led them to the meeting point was far beyond human comprehension. It was as if space folded around them, and within hours, they arrived at their destination. The Galactic Council's assembly hall was vast beyond imagining. Thousands of alien species filled the chamber, their forms as varied as the creatures of Earth's deepest oceans and darkest nightmares. Some floated in shimmering orbs, others slithered, clicked, or pulsed with bioluminescent energy. Towering insectoids, crystalline entities, and amorphous blobs all turned to examine the newcomers. Then they laughed. It was a sound that transcended language, a universal expression of mockery. The Council had seen species like ours before. Primitive. Young. Fragile. They had watched us, studied us, and found us unworthy. A speaker stepped forward, an alien with translucent skin and a voice like crackling static. Humanity of soul, we acknowledge your presence. But know this, your kind has nothing to offer the galaxy. You are weak. You are insignificant. You have barely set foot beyond your own system, and you believe you are ready to join the Grand Order? Tell us, what power do you wield? What right do you have to stand among us? More laughter echoed through the hall. The human delegation felt their hearts sink. They had expected skepticism, but outright ridicule? It was humiliating. But then, the lead diplomat, a woman named Dr. Evelyn Carter, stepped forward. She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't a scientist. She was a historian, chosen for her knowledge of human civilizations, of our triumphs and our failures. She took a deep breath, looked at the gathered species, and spoke a single word. A word that silenced the chamber. A word that made even the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy recoil in fear. And in that moment, the laughter stopped. The word hung in the air, invisible yet heavy, like a silent explosion that rippled across the assembly hall. The laughter died instantly. The smug expressions of the council members twisted into something else: shock, confusion, and in some cases, pure terror. Some recoiled as if the word itself had struck them. Others whispered among themselves in their alien tongues, their voices laced with urgency. Dr. Evelyn Carter held her ground, watching their reactions with quiet satisfaction. She had spent years studying the histories of great human civilizations, and she knew one thing above all: true power was not just in weapons or technology. It was in ideas. And this one word, this single, simple concept, was something the Galactic Council had never expected from a species as young as humanity. The alien who had mocked them, the translucent-skinned being who had stood so proudly above the rest, finally found its voice. That word, it cannot be true. Dr. Carter smiled, though there was no humor in it. It is true. And you know it. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some council members began shouting, their voices a mix of clicks, growls, and harmonics that made no sense to human ears. Others activated their communication devices, sending urgent messages back to their homeworlds. A few simply stood frozen, as if processing the implications of what had just been spoken. The human delegation stood firm. They had expected resistance, but they hadn't expected fear. And that changed everything. "Then perhaps," he said, his voice firm, "it's time you stop underestimating us." The reptilian being bared its fangs. "You dare threaten the council?" Vaughn smirked. "You threatened us first. You laughed at us. You told us we were nothing. But we've survived everything the universe has thrown at us so far. And we're still standing." The old, ethereal being pulsed again, considering. "And if we decide to remove humanity before you become a greater threat?" Vaughn's smirk didn't fade. "You can try." The silence stretched. The council members exchanged glances. They saw something in the humans that they hadn't before. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't blind defiance. It was certainty. Humans had faced extinction before. Wars. Plagues. Disasters, both natural and self-inflicted. And yet, each time, they had adapted. They had survived. And now, for the first time, the galaxy saw them for what they truly were, a species that thrived under pressure. The reptilian being let out a slow breath. "You have given us much to consider, humans of soul." The ethereal elder shifted in the air, its voice soft yet weighted. "The council will deliberate. But know this, if your claim is true, you may have sealed your fate." Dr. Carter met its gaze, or at least, the space where its gaze should have been. "Perhaps. Or perhaps we've just changed the game." The council adjourned. The human delegation was escorted back to their ship. No formal agreements were made that day. No alliances were forged. But something far more important had happened. The galaxy no longer saw humanity as weak. And that was the first step toward power. Epilogue. Back on the UNS horizon, Dr. Carter sat in the observation deck, staring at the endless void of space. Vaughn joined her, hands clasped behind his back. "Do you think they'll come for us?" he asked. Carter exhaled. "Some will. Others will want to negotiate. Either way, humanity is no longer just a footnote in galactic history." Vaughn nodded. "And that word, do you think they truly feared it?" Carter's lips curled into a small smile. "Oh, they feared it. Because it's not just a word, General. It's a warning." She turned away from the window, her voice barely above a whisper. "Revolution." And somewhere, in the depths of the galaxy, the old powers began to tremble. The Galactic Council had always believed itself to be the ultimate authority in the universe. They had shaped empires, crushed uprisings, and silenced countless civilizations before they could ever rise to true power. But humanity was different. The word had changed everything. Revolution. It wasn't just a concept, it was humanity's greatest strength. Across their own history, they had overthrown tyrants, broken chains, and reshaped entire societies. The idea that a species so young could bring such a force into the galactic stage sent waves of fear through the council. And fear led to action. Days after the meeting, the first act of hostility came. A fleet of warships, belonging to the ZYRRTH Dominion, the most militant race in the council, was sent to Earth's solar system. Officially, they claimed it was a precautionary measure. Unofficially, it was an invasion force. But humanity had been preparing. The moment the alien fleet crossed into the outer edges of the solar system, they found something unexpected: resistance. Earth's space forces were not as advanced as the galactic civilizations, but they were not helpless. Using a combination of guerrilla tactics, stealth technology, and sheer human ingenuity, they struck first. The first battle of the Soul Defense Initiative took place near Jupiter's orbit. A dozen Earth-built warships, heavily outgunned and outnumbered, faced the ZYRRTH fleet head-on. Commander Elias Novak, leading the human forces, knew they couldn't win in a direct engagement. Instead, they used deception. The ZYRRTH fleet had advanced scanners and superior firepower, but they had never fought against a species that thought like humans. Using Jupiter's powerful radiation belt as cover, the human fleet masked their ship's signals and launched a coordinated strike. Hidden mines, electromagnetic pulse weapons, and AI-controlled drone swarms struck the ZYRRTH ships before they could react. In the chaos, the humans launched a daring boarding action, storming the lead ZYRRTH dreadnought, Bloodfang. Inside the enemy vessel, human soldiers fought with brutal efficiency. The ZYRRTH were stronger, faster, and biologically superior, but they lacked one thing: desperation. Humans fought not for conquest, but for survival. When the Bloodfang fell, the ZYRRTH fleet panicked. Their command structure was broken. Their tactics, built on overwhelming force, collapsed in the face of human unpredictability. By the time the battle ended, the ZYRRTH fleet had lost nearly half its ships. The rest retreated. Humanity had won its first battle against the Galactic Council. But war had only just begun. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy. Some council members called for immediate retaliation. Others, however, hesitated. If a species as young as humanity could repel a Dominion fleet, what else were they capable of? Meanwhile, Earth prepared for the inevitable counterattack. Factories worked around the clock, mass-producing new warships. Scientists scrambled to reverse-engineer alien technology. Soldiers trained harder than ever before. The world's divisions, once deep and bitter, began to fade. Humanity was no longer a collection of nations, it was a single force, united against a common enemy. As expected, the Council's response was swift. A coalition fleet, larger than anything humanity had ever faced, was assembled. This time, it wasn't just the ZYRRTH. The Valeth Empire, a race of hyper-intelligent strategists, joined the assault, alongside the Ketheri swarm, an insectoid species known for their ruthless efficiency in war. Earth stood no chance in a direct conflict. But that was never the plan. Instead of defending a single position, humanity scattered its forces. They abandoned old military doctrines and adapted. Using hit-and-run tactics, deep space ambushes, and sabotage missions, they forced the coalition fleet to spread itself thin. A crucial turning point came during the siege of Mars. The coalition had expected an easy victory. They bombarded the red planet for days, believing they had wiped out the human presence. But when they landed, they found something horrifying. The humans hadn't been defeated. They had been waiting. Against impossible odds, they fought their way through the most heavily defended installation in the galaxy. Every member of the team knew it was a suicide mission. But they pressed on. In the final moments, with the weapon already beginning its countdown, Hayes managed to override the targeting system. Instead of Earth, it turned on the Council's own capital world. The galaxy watched in horror as the Council's homeworld, once the seat of absolute power, was reduced to nothing. The ruling species, the architects of oppression, were annihilated by their own weapon. And with that, the war was over. The Galactic Council collapsed overnight. The remaining species, realizing the old order was gone, scrambled to form new alliances. But there was no denying it, humanity had won. Not because they were stronger. Not because they were smarter. But because they had the one thing the Council feared most: revolution. And as the stars themselves bore witness, humanity took its first step into a new era. Not as subjects. Not as outcasts. But as rulers. The war was over, but the echoes of revolution still rippled across the galaxy. The Galactic Council, once an unshakable force that dictated the fate of countless civilizations, had been shattered. Its members, those who had survived the destruction of their homeworld, scattered into exile. Some attempted to rebuild, others fled into the farthest reaches of space, hoping to escape the consequences of their tyranny. But there was no going back to the old ways. With the fall of the council, chaos spread. Formerly oppressed species saw their chance to rise. Entire star systems, once enslaved, now demanded their freedom. Power vacuums formed, and in their wake, new alliances emerged. Some sought peace. Others sought vengeance. And at the center of it all, stood humanity. The United Soul Federation, formed in the final days of the war, was now the most influential force in known space. Once mocked as a primitive race, humans had become something far greater, the architects of a new order. But power came with a cost. The human leadership faced a choice: would they rule as conquerors, enforcing their will upon the shattered remains of the old galactic order? Or would they guide the galaxy toward something new, something better? Debates raged. Some believed humanity should take control, ensuring stability through dominance. Others argued that they had fought to end oppression, not to replace it with their own rule. The scars of war were still fresh, and the weight of responsibility was heavier than ever before. Dr. Evelyn Carter, now one of the most respected voices in the new Federation, stood at the heart of these discussions. She had been the one to utter the word that changed everything. Now, she had to ensure that the revolution did not become the very thing it had sought to destroy. General Richard Vaughan, the man who had led humanity's military forces to victory, understood the danger of power. He had seen firsthand what unchecked authority could do. But he also knew that without strong leadership, the galaxy would descend into anarchy. Then there was Captain Aidan Hayes, the hero who had stopped the Void Annihilator. He had returned from the war a legend, but legends carried burdens of their own. He had sacrificed everything for victory. Now, he found himself in a universe that no longer needed warriors, but needed builders, diplomats, and visionaries. Across the galaxy, the remnants of the war lingered. The Zyrrth Dominion, humiliated and broken, withdrew to their homeworlds. Rumors spread that they were secretly rebuilding, waiting for the right moment to strike again. The Valeth Empire, master strategists who had once believed in the Council's absolute power, were now in disarray. Without the central authority they had relied on, they struggled to find their place in this new galaxy. Some sought alliances with humanity. Others vanished into the darkness, preparing for a different kind of war, one fought not with weapons, but with deception. The Ketheri swarm, once an unstoppable force of biological conquest, fractured. Some of their kind saw humanity as worthy allies, a species that had earned their respect through battle. Others, however, viewed them as the greatest threat to ever emerge. For every civilization that embraced the new order, there were others who resisted it. Peace was not guaranteed. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted as news of victory spread. The world that had once been divided by borders, politics, and conflicts was now unified in a way that had never been seen before. The war had changed humanity, not just in how they were seen by the galaxy, but in how they saw themselves. For the first time in history, humanity was not just a single planet among the stars. They were a force that shaped the cosmos itself. But victory came with a haunting truth. In overthrowing the Council, in fighting for their survival, humans had proven something terrifying: they were capable of the same ruthlessness, the same ambition, the same hunger for power as the very beings they had overthrown. Dr. Carter knew this better than anyone. As she stood on the observation deck of the UNS Horizon, staring at the vastness of space, she whispered to herself the same word that had started it all. Revolution. The galaxy had been reborn in fire. But revolutions never truly end. They only evolve. And as the stars burned bright in the endless void, one thing became clear: humanity's story was just beginning.